The mark of a great story is being adapted into other forms of media without losing any of the emotional heart contained in the original source material. While the video game industry has improved at doing this in recent years, for example, The Last of Us and Arcane, the early days of video game adaptations were routinely brought down by poor direction choices and questionable scripts that paid no respect to the games that the projects were based on. With an influx of video game-based movies and television shows on the horizon, some fans are wary that this oversaturation could also lead to more poorly written adaptations. The earliest video game adaptations for the industry routinely featured poor CGI and acting that did not adequately bring the characters to life. While performances like the late Raul Julia's role as M. Bison in Street Fighter 1994 stand out from the rest, these films often brought characters to the big screen purely, and thus stand out as some of the worst video game adaptations ever made. Number 10, Amazon's Like a Dragon adaptation is frustratingly serious. One of the most important aspects of any great video game adaptation is understanding the source material's tone and making sure that the show or movie adapts it consistently. In a rather frustrating trend, many directors are asking their actors not to play the source material, so these shows are starting to stray further away from their source material. In what should have been a slam dunk for a TV adaptation, Amazon Prime's Yakuza Like a Dragon unfortunately followed this ideology, thus resulting in a super adaptation. While the Yakuza video game series is a tense crime drama at its core, its characters are endlessly charming, and whimsical moments help the world have more heart than it would without them. Unfortunately, the Amazon Prime adaptation missed this memo, opting for a serious tone for the entire run of the show, thus leaving out the most charming aspects of iconic characters like Kazuma Kiryu and Akira Nishikiyama. Overall, fans were greatly disappointed by this adaptation, and the series with some of the most dedicated fans in the industry was left with another mediocre television series. Number 9, Doom is a mediocre action film that lacks the source material's charm. Action-packed video games are often harder to adapt than more story-based titles, as the surplus of action usually means that the game has a rather straightforward narrative. While there are exceptions to this, for example, Hades, the fact that these titles shine because it is an interactive medium makes many film and TV adaptations of action games fall short. Despite the inclusion of one of the most popular action stars, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, one 2005 film fell victim to a distinct lack of success. Doom is a 2005 film that aims to adapt one of the most iconic rated M games of all time, striving to create a feature-length film with the same amount of brutal charm as the original game. Unfortunately, the protagonist of the film has none of the charm of the stoic Doom guy from the games, and the narrative feels too similar to many superior sci-fi titles to truly stand out from other video game adaptations. Number 8, multiple adaptations don't save Tomb Raider from mediocrity. The Tomb Raider franchise is one of the most iconic action-adventure series of all time, as it takes just enough inspiration from the Indiana Jones film series to create a unique experience. The long-running series continues to this day, as it changes its iconic protagonist, Lara Croft, with each subsequent entry, often improving the narrative of the games. Unfortunately, because the game takes some basis from a film series, it was always going to be difficult to create a good film based on the game. Tomb Raider has received 3 films, 2001, 2003 and 2018, each of them having a varying degree of quality. While the first 2 films, starring Angelina Jolie, were charming but mediocre action films, the most recent film, starring Alicia Vikander, poorly utilized its source material, thus resulting in a boring, run-of-the-mill film. Overall, Tomb Raider is an amazing action-adventure franchise, but it might be best to leave Lara Croft's adventure to a more interactive medium. Number 7, too many installments sent Resident Evil off the rails. Unlike most other mediocre film adaptations, the Resident Evil series did not start off poorly, as the first film was an exciting action horror film with good CGI and a decent script that allowed the film to stand the test of time as a cult classic. Furthermore, this film only loosely adapted the game series, making it an enjoyable experience for moviegoers who had not played the games. Unfortunately, this level of quality did not last for the rest of the series. As the series expanded into several more film entries, it attempted to adapt more of the source material in an attempt to draw in fans of the games. Unfortunately, this backfired and brought down the quality of the series, despite the best efforts of its star, Milla Jovovich. Overall, Resident Evil is an intriguing case for video game adaptations, and it is a great story of lost potential. Number 6, poor casting brings down Uncharted's quality. Casting is arguably the most important part of any video game adaptation, as choosing the wrong actor to play the main character can take fans out of the movie immediately. While a great actor can elevate a mediocre video game adaptation, the same great actor might not be a good fit for the protagonist of the film. This is precisely what happened in the case of the adaptation of the Naughty Dog classic action-adventure series, Uncharted. Uncharted dealt with numerous production issues throughout its development, and by the time fans saw the first trailer for the film, they were less than thrilled. Nathan Drake was portrayed by Spider-Man star Tom Holland in one of the most perplexing choices of all time. While the rest of the movie was intriguing enough to be watchable, it was hard for many fans to see the young actor portray the grizzled adventurer, thus dooming the adaptation almost immediately. Number 5, a video game adaptation star cannot save Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is one of Capcom's best franchises, as each of its installments brings something new to the table that makes both old fans and newer ones excited about the release of a new title. While these games do have continuous narratives, the majority of the game's story is contained in hunting individual monsters on side quests. Therefore, any film adaptation of the series was doomed from the start, as capturing the source material's charm was going to be almost impossible. Milla Jovovich has been the star of multiple video game adaptations, but her familiarity with the genre was not enough to save Monster Hunter from yet another mediocre film adaptation. Combined with poor CGI and a horrid script, the film wastes the performances of Jovovich and her custer, Ron Perlman, in an unmemorable adaptation that does a great disservice to a Capcom classic. Number 4, Assassin's Creed squanders an amazing actor in an original tale. Ubisoft has been struggling in recent months, which has led to many fans clamoring for a simpler time when the company produced some of the most engaging open-world titles in the entire industry. However, not everything was great during that era either, as the Assassin's Creed series features one of the most mediocre film adaptations in gaming history. Released in 2016, Assassin's Creed stars Michael Fassbender and Jeremy Irons in a story that is only loosely based on the Ubisoft franchise. By not utilizing the series' classic characters like Ezio Auditore da Firenze and Edward Kenway, many fans of the source material were not interested, thus leading to the film failing at the box office en route to becoming a heavily disliked video game adaptation. Number 3, Tekken's first adaptation did not respect the Bandai Namco classic. Tekken is perhaps the most influential 3D fighting game franchise ever created, and its most recent entry, Tekken 8, is among the best fighting games that 2024 has to offer. While recent adaptations of the series are enjoyable and respect the source material quite well, the first adaptation of the Bandai Namco classic is among the worst films based on a video game. Not only is the first Tekken adaptation poorly written, but it is also terribly cast, as none of the actors capture the energy of the iconic characters, especially the actors that played Steve Fox and Kazuya Mishima. Fighting games are already difficult to adapt, and other franchises have also featured mediocre adaptations, for example Street Fighter, but this film adaptation is perhaps the most aggravating fighting game movie ever created. Number 2, House of the Dead is a stunningly mediocre horror film. House of the Dead is among the best arcade shooter titles, as its eerie atmosphere, engaging enemies, enjoyable boss fights, and cheesy dialogue have helped it stand the test of time. The series still receives installments to this day, and they are still high-quality arcade titles, with the narrative improving in each subsequent title. However, the film adaptation of the iconic Sega franchise lacks the charm of its source material and becomes a stunningly boring horror film. Horror is perhaps the most common genre for video game adaptations, as it is one of the best genres for creating mood and atmosphere in all films. However, the film adaptation of House of the Dead lacks the cheesy whimsy of its source material, leading it to become a rather routine horror movie that is among the worst zombie films ever made. While House of the Dead is a great video game franchise, its film adaptation does not pay respect to the series it is based on. And number 1, the 2024 science fiction action comedy film co-written and directed by Eli Roth, Borderlands is the worst video game adaptation ever made. Sometimes, good actors don't necessarily make a good film, and that is precisely what happened with the film adaptation of the shooter classic, Borderlands. The game series features lovable characters, a dynamic story, and just enough humor to break up the tension when it needs to. However, the film overrides all the tension with meaningless comedy, making it feel like some of the worst Marvel films. Starring Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Jamie Lee Curtis and many other stars, the film pulls together what is seemingly a great ensemble cast, but the script is so horrendous that it drowns out the talent. While video game adaptations have come a long way in recent years, this film felt like an unnecessary callback to some of the worst video game films of the late 1990s and early 2000s.